Who is the most dangerous? The enemy you see or the one you don't? Progressive socialist communist Dems or the rhinos who conceal the corruption in the colors and the cross? Pedo Joe sold out to any and everybody, but Trump to Israel and the FBI. Charlie outprayed, outthought, and outdebated all comers, clearing clouded college minds, turning points for Christ and freedom, and daring to question October 7th, while chafing at Zionist donors. So they killed him. Quick, before his mind changed more, and then he, millions. Bodyguard betrayed, cameras confiscated, script launched. But their downfall is their disbelief. As Yeshua proved, to crucify is to magnify 1,000 times. And their new temple, like the old, will fall in failure. Retired soldier, special agent spy turned whistleblower warrior, served in sabotage, rejected and redeemed, failed and forgiven, betrayed and saved, rejecting revenge, humbled and blessed, repurposed in redemption, as chaplain, leader, teacher, and truth teller. Now, America's intelligence officer, following God, leading my family, and any that choose to join on our long walk to faith and freedom. Welcome. I'm Jeff Prather, and this is the Prather Point. Hey, great to be with you. It doesn't seem that my Rumble feed does not seem to be working today, so I will not be able to interact with you on Rumble. Likely I can on X. So if you want to switch over there to chime in, please do. But I've tried to get it up a couple times. I don't know what's happening. I don't think it's on our end today. But I wanted to start out with the show title is Team America's Ideological Hostage Rescue. And I think it's time I highly praised and say how proud I am of Team America. Of course, Team America, I founded Team America. You can join Team America at jeffreyprather.com. And Team America is simply Americans relying on each other and God and not corrupt government in DC, just like we stopped relying on corrupt government in Britain. And it's totally voluntary. There's no 501c3. There's nothing to trace. But we work behind the scenes, just as I have my entire career, very much like a special forces or resistance movement. It's not militia. It is resistance. And Team America's Ideological Hostage Rescue has come about, and this is from Nathan Glover, who was the headquarters S3 operations officer. One of his brilliant mimetic weaponry memes is America needed an ideological hostage rescue, and I believe we have accomplished that. We just had a Team America meeting the other day, and we were really focusing on, again, behind the scenes is America is so in thrall to the deep state, the global cabal, and Israel is embedded in both the deep state, which is the double government, and the global cabal, which are foreign deep states as well. So we've been really working hard to expose that through mounting mimetic anti-Zion campaigns. And that has really come to fruition. We've been doing that for several years now. And now you can see Candace Owens, you can see Tucker, you can see all kinds of much more mainstream than liberty, truth fringe, as I would call myself, now moving along with that. So there is a significant and growing shift in how American Jews and also American Christian Zionists, particularly the younger generations, relate to Zionism in Israel. Historically, American Jewish support for Israel solidified after the 1967 Six-Day War for decades, and Zionism was seen as central to American Jewish identity. However, recent years have seen a fracture in this consensus. And as of late 2025, the longstanding Zionist consensus among American Jews and American Christian Zionists has collapsed, especially in the wake of Israel's actions in Gaza, including widespread destruction, famine, and civilian casualties. And, of course, our efforts, our information truth operation efforts throughout Team America and through the Prather Point as well, and the Christ Connection chaplaincy as well. So this has led to a loss of hegemony among the liberal Zionist center within American Jewish communities and American Christian Zionists. Zionism will likely continue, but it no longer serves as the gatekeeper. So to Jewish communal life and to American Christian Zionists are starting to fade out. This shift is generational and political. Younger Americans are more critical of Zionism and Israel, especially under increasingly right wing governments, and are less likely to equate Jewish identity with unconditional support for Israel because they're not the same thing at all. I've talked about this. Judaism is not Zionism. And you could even make a coherent argument that modern Judaism is not the Hebrew religion, because after the temple fell, everything changed, and the rabbis were left, and they made a bunch of stuff up. None of that was Hebrew religion, because the Hebrew religion was central to the temple. But of course, that fell as Yeshua predicted. Not a stone of this will remain. That's why they all go to the Wailing Wall. That's the Roman garrison. It's not part of the temple. The Romans destroyed it completely, as they were wont to do, and that's what the Roman records say as well. But strong support for Israel and Zionism still persists among many American Jews, and of course among many American Christian Zionists, and of course among the political class, chiefly Trump and the Trump's staff constellation and family. But Zionism and Netanyahu and Mossad as the ultimate gatekeeper have been overcome. This is an inflection point, just like I talked about the inflection point the other day. So the Zionist consensus among Americans has collapsed, and that is very good news. And I am proud to say that that is in no small part to Team America's efforts and through memetics and tipping points. And this is done through creating an information epidemic that requires concentrating resources on few key areas. Success of a social epidemic heavily depends on involvement of three types of people: connectors, gregarious and known many people, active in many different social and professional niches and subcultures; mavens, experts, socially motivated to share information; then salesmen, persuaders, articulate, inherently good at convincing others after rapidly obtaining their trust and support. Mavens generate the message, connectors spread it, and salesmen persuade the unconvinced to heed the message. The messages also need stickiness. The messages should be made practical and personal. Information should be packaged in a simple way to make it irresistible. Behavior is a function of social context. Little things matter. When interpreting the behavior of others, people overestimate the importance of fundamental character traits and underestimate the importance of situation and context. Groups have a critical role in social epidemics. And so I think we have very successfully done that. And I think all you got to do is look at YouTube and look at X, which is not what you see, of course, in the mainstream media, but that just shows the giant divide between mainstream media as well. Hey, remember, I've got the teamamericacoffee.com banner up there. I've got some great Minuteman coffee here. Make sure you get your teamamerica.com coffee or staybrewed.com coffee, or you can go to jeffreyprather.com in the shop and get the Prather private label, which is also out of Stay Brewed. It is great stuff. You can also go into the shop there at jeffreyprather.com, get your hypochlorous curative spray, because everybody's sick right now. My girls are finally getting better. Stops RSV, stops anthrax, all kinds of stuff. Go in there and get your Faraday bags as well. These nice new Faraday bags have these magnets, which close much nicer and smoother. A nice click there than the adhesive did as well. And I've got a few sets of books left. If you're interested in getting my signed books: Initiation, My Journey Within a Papian Medicine Man, Boys Are Born, Men Are Trained, and Chase, Terror on the Border, Fact-Based Fiction by a DEA agent. Those are still available. Please support all the sponsors. That's real important. And you can go to patreon.com and subscribe at the $5, $15, and $25 level, or locals, just subscribe at the $9 level or $90 a year. So, of course, Republicans lost across the board from California to New York yesterday. on election day. And that says several things. And again, this is not a political show. This is an intelligence analysis program. It always has been. But where relevant, I will talk about politics, but you don't see me talking about that much because it's really not. Uh, unless it's as an aspect of warfare, because politics is the other side of the coin of warfare. Politics is convincing someone to do what you want. War is making someone do what you want. They're two sides of the same coin. But Republicans aren't sad that they lost yesterday at all. That's what they're going to say, but they're not sad at all. They're actually happy they lost, which is what I said at the beginning. All the rhinos and all the Trump Constellation staff and Trump who don't want to release the Epstein files, who don't want to admit that Mossad and the CIA and the government were trafficking and raping and kidnapping children. And don't want to take any responsibility for that, don't want to confess it, don't want to repent it. It's great that they've lost that because now they can bemoan the fact that they're not in power and they can't do anything. And it takes the onus off them. So they're actually happy they lost. This is a cycle the Republicans engage in all the time. This is the uniparty doing it what it does best, which is protecting itself. There's a few, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Massey, Paul, a couple of others, but not many. Most are very happy to lose because now the spotlight is off of them and they can put the spotlight on the Dems. And the Dems, are openly about killing babies, bringing in illegals. And so it makes it a lot easier. That's why Republicans like to lose. They always have. They always will. And of course, the Republican Party is fading because of the fact that Trump is not doing what he said he was elected to do. So I've gone over this in detail, that he's involving us in more Mideast wars after he said he wouldn't do that. He wouldn't do regime change. Now he's for regime change. And I still get messages from people saying, I know you just don't like Trump. No, I don't dislike or like the guy. It's his policies. It's when he's putting deep state cabal and Israel, who are trafficking, kidnapping, raping little girls before the truth by not releasing the Epstein files. And you simplify this down to like, you don't like Trump. Well, I like Trump. Well, again, I keep saying, Trump is not your Messiah. And if he is, then just admit it and say you're a Trumpist, that you're not a Christian then. But a lot of people are, again, very afraid to face the fact that Trump isn't just the answer to everything for them, and they actually have to get off the couch and do something. And so they can't face the fact that Trump is not doing what he said he is doing. And that's very unfortunate, but there are a lot of people like that. But anyway, that's why Republicans like to lose. Also, Charlie's team infilled by Israelis. This is breaking as well. And again, this is, I think, something that Team America has had a big influence on. Netanyahu's former bodyguard looks like he was embedded in the Charlie Kirk detail there at the last minute. Brian Harpole was a former police officer and contractor or mercenary. He was, and he was part of Charlie Kirk's security detail. And it looks like he was part of then Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's personal security team in 2017. So if you look at the side-by-side photos, leaving no doubt it's the same man in the same role. He once shielded Netanyahu, and now he's embedded with Kirk. And Charlie had pivoted hard against Israel. Days before his death, he dropped a bombshell warning they were out to silence him for good. A reverse image searches on the 2017 Netanyahu airport photos lead to scrubbed Zimbio archives. 3 engines, 0 results, Site 404. So this isn't a coincidence. They are actively deleting evidence. What's this mean? This is just more intelligence indicators that the Israelis were in on it. And further, besides uh, that guy is TPUSA's security chief, Dan Flood, may have been blackmailed because he was a big gay model back in 2009. And so there's all these photos. And again, I apologize that I don't have my two screens because of the house fire. So I can't show you these things. I'm still working on that. And looking forward to getting my cockpit back. The house is about halfway done. But anyway, he was a male gay model, and there were ties to these Romanian trafficking ties, and so he may have been blackmailed. So a lot of people are responding to this on X, and they're saying, "Hey, look, he's a Christian. He made a mistake. He has confessed. He has changed." That's not the issue. The issue is whether he was blackmailed or not. Um, but again, this ties back to Israel and to Mossad. And again, Israel's is all over um, the uh, the Charlie Kirk assassination. And finally, on that, and I'm also getting a lot of flack for this, is and at first I was very much in favor of Erica Kirk. Now again, my S3 was like, nope, she's fake, and a lot of people were saying that on the Team America headquarters. And the evidence is now coming out because I've talked about how she was caressing JD Vance's hair. That's totally inappropriate. That's why I go everywhere with my children and my wife. I do the Keanu hug where I air hug. I don't hug anyone back at all, just to avoid all that stuff, because I've been accused of all that stuff a long time ago. Remember when the DEA made all that stuff up about me? But Erica Kirk has been caught, and there's a video of this on X of using tear solution to create fake tears right before she went on stage. Okay, and I've tried to put that on my Patreon, and locals, you should be subscribing to me on X so you can see this. But the video is very clear; it's unmistakable. She's dropping tear solution to have tear, and then going right up the stairs onto the stage. She is faking it, and that goes along with what looks like has been happening. So it's also very, very significant that top Trump officials are now hiding on military bases. So multiple senior Trump officials have quietly relocated into military housing around DC. Stephen Miller and his family moved from their Arlington home into a military base housing, listing their mansion for $3.75 million. I'll tell you, even the best of base housing, and I've been in it, as a cadet, as an officer, Army, Navy, Marines. The Navy's got pretty nice stuff usually, and sometimes the Air Force. But it is nothing like civilian housing. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem has moved into Joint Base Anacostia Bowling, usually reserved for the Coast Guard commander. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth are holed up in Fort McNair's General's Row, where Hegseth is reportedly paying rent. Army Secretary Daniel Driscoll has moved into Joint Base Myers, sharing quarters with Navy Secretary John Feely, whose home was damaged by fire earlier. He had a fire too. Now our fire was total incompetence. It wasn't sabotage by any means. But it's interesting that he had a fire. But this is something strange that this is happening right now. And could this be preparation for another false flag and for another made up Middle East war? Well, it is very possible. It is very likely that that is the case. So we will see. Candace Owens has also dropped a bombshell revealing that 12 Israeli-linked cell phones were detected at Utah Valley University on the day Charlie Kirk was taken out, was murdered, was assassinated. And this revelation has shaken officials in Washington. Kash Patel, of course, covering everything up. That's what the FBI does all the time, cover everything up now. And of course, remember I had John Michael Cullen on, who said there was a DDoS attack that cut all of the cell phone um, feeds during the assassination via those fast moving drones. If that is true, that is only a government ability. So it's either got to be the US government, it's got to be the Israeli government, it's got to be some government that can do things like that. But that is the most telling sign that makes everything look like the government is in on it without a doubt. Uh, more indications that there is a political and generational divide are the Gen Z is being called the tool belt generation, and they're ditching college. They are not going to college. Now, I've got 2 bachelors, a master's, several honorary PhDs. My kids are super smart, but they're homeschooled, and I've said they don't have to go to school, to college, because it's so corrupted, and a lot of people are finally learning that because the tech jobs are fading. Um, learn to code was the old war cry. AI is coming for the coders, but they're not coming for the plumbers. They're not coming from the steam fitters. They're not coming for the pipe fitters or the HVACers. They're not coming for the electricians. So a lot of folks are moving to that. This is not a rebellion. This is more realism. And what does this mean? Well, this will mean a much more practical oriented youth generation. That is, they won't buy into the lies of communism and lies of socialism so well. Why? Because they will see how things work. College kids aren't working. They're in this little ivory tower and they think, oh yeah, communism, socialism, it sounds great. Theoretically, it all sounds great. But if you're going to be a pipe fitter, and a plumber, it's not about theory. It's, does the water come, and is it hot, and is it cold when it's supposed to come? So that's going to make a big difference. And I think that goes along with this generational shift away from Zionism and being dominated by Israel as well. And there's a huge scarcity of these. And I'll tell you, they're making a lot of money, but I'm going to tell you who's going to make the most money is farmers. There's only 10,000 people in America learning how to farm. Everybody else is doing ecological green BS. But if you really want to be wealthy, and luckily I live in an area and I actually get to hang out with rich folk, but they don't look like rich folk, but their money's in their tractors, their money's in their land. But they're not running around, dripping diamonds and gold chains. And Palantir is also saying that college is no longer a reliable training ground. Now, I'm well aware of all the Palantir problems, but the Palantir CEO is saying skip the debt, skip the indoctrination. And that is crucial as well, because again, where are our children indoctrinated into socialism and communism and all these evils? It happens at college. So the Palantir CEO has launched a meritocracy fellowship, and this is going after high schoolers because he's saying college kids are too corrupt. I saw this in my Warrior School company as well. But CEO Alex Karp calls his company the best credential in tech. And that's true. College degrees can't keep up with that. And he has a real disdain. And again, I'm not excusing the problems with Palantir in the intelligence and law enforcement communities. We've talked about that a great deal. But this is, again, a sea change of the way things are happening. And again, I think this fits right into the win through Team America of mimetic warfare against the deep state being controlled by the global cabal and by Israel. So he says everything you learned at your school and college about how the world works is intellectually incorrect. And that really ties into my guests as well, because they are experts in this. And these are Chinese Americans who are warning about the U.S. culture revolution, and they know about this firsthand. Yugong Mike Zhao is the president of the Asian American Coalition for Education, a nationally recognized advocate for meritocracy and a steadfast defender of the U.S. Constitution. During China's Cultural Revolution, his family endured political persecution, extreme poverty, devastating personal loss. Remember, 75 million killed from Chinese communism at minimum. The numbers may actually be higher. than that. In 1992, he immigrated to the United States to escape communism and pursue the American dream. Through determination and hard work, he rose to become director of global planning at Siemens Energy, famous company. Since 2014, he has been leading a voice against anti-Asian discrimination in college admissions, which is funny because Asians do well in college, not because I don't think they're smarter. I just think their parents make them work harder than everybody else. And they don't go out. I see him, he's nodding there as well on that. But their efforts culminated in the landmark Supreme Court ruling in June 2023, which struck down race-based affirmative action policies, which is great. And Zhao testified before Congress in September 2023 on the significance of this decision. He's published one book and contributed many opinion pieces to National Review, the Washington Examiner, the Daily Caller, Orange County Register, and other outlets defending constitutional principles and speaking out against socialism, critical race theory, and radical progressive ideologies. And Frank Zhu has actively engaged in California politics and policy advocacy. He co-founded several influential state and local organizations, namely the San Diego Asian Americans for Equality, the Californians for Equal Rights Foundation, the PUSD Community Watch, and more. All of these organizations have proven track records of defending equal rights for Californians, including Californians of Chinese descent, which, if you don't know, the Chinese were almost enslaved building the railroads back in the day. As the state financial chair of the triumphant number No on 16, which helped resolutely defeat the race preferential Proposition 16. He has in-depth and unique experience in launching, organizing, and leading political campaigns. And so they were recently just trying to stop Newsom's spearheading his new proposals, but we'll get into that because there's a lot of things I want to talk to them about, including China's war on Christians. But Frank and Mike, thank you so much for waiting there. And I hope I got your introductions, your CVs mostly correct.
Yes, thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us, Jeffrey.
No, great to have you. Great to have you. So, first off, you were working very hard for the elections against what Newsom was going for. So first explain that a little bit, and then the results of that, since that just happened, please.
Frank, maybe you go first.
Sure. So yeah, Newsom just tried to amend the Constitution, and in a way that completely defies the will of we the people and the existing Constitution. Basically, what he did is to grab the power of drawing the political map from we the people to the politicians. But he managed to get it passed, unfortunately. But we have fought to our best, try to stop it. But I believe, for many California voters, they were just indoctrinated and getting more and more emotional and lose their principles during the voting.
Feeling, not thinking.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And so, and you guys are with the Chinese Americans for the Constitution is your organization. I've published that on my Patreon and Locals this morning. Is that right, Mike?
Yes, a couple other things I want to add, because as you mentioned, we escaped the communist rules, right? We really cherish the American democracy, cherish the freedom here. That's the reason Frank and I, we co-founded this organization, try to defend American democracy. Actually what Gavin Newsom did was to grab the citizens' rights, to his political party for his partisan gain. So that's something, motivated us to come out to fight against.
So, Xi came into California and there were, Chinese flags, communist China flags everywhere. But I interpreted that actually as a sign of weakness that was really meant to reinforce him in China. That's how I looked at it. I think Xi is in a very political, unstable position in China with all the riots and the people leaving factories and the banks collapsing and the real estate collapse. And that was really a political stunt. What do you think about that, Frank?
Well, I may have a different interpretation about the current, what's currently happening in China. I believe that she might be in a very stable power position right now. And this is what's happening in a dictatorship country, because the media, the educational system are indoctrinated and are infiltrated by the ideologies. So actually, even though some people are fighting against the tyranny, but the main system, the media, the education, universities, and the policymakers, and even the judges are working for the dictator. So, and that's why we are fighting in California as well, because we see the similar pattern happening in California and in this country, because the radical leftists infiltrated our educational system, and they basically told our kids that men can be women, women can be men, and there is no truth, right? And critical race theory that's about, hey, they totally rewrite the American history and painted us, the entire nation as a racist country, while we are the exact opposite. And the media just amplify what they talked about on the ideologies. So, we believe that if we allow California continue that route, it will follow the path of the People's Republic of China, and it will become the People's Republic of California. So that's why we fight here in California.
No, that makes total sense. So, Mike, I talk a lot about, because I'm a retired military intelligence officer, about fifth generational warfare, and talk about how the two Chinese Air Force colonels watched us win the first Gulf War so quickly. They said, nobody can take the Americans head on, so we're not going to. They developed their doctrine of unrestricted warfare, and they enacted their doctrine of unrestricted warfare against us to control our economy, to infiltrate our institutions, bring about Confucius Institutes. And there was a Professor Ping, who is a CCP member in 2020, who bragged and said they had won a war against the United States, which I agree with. They have won successfully a fifth generation war. Fifth generation war doesn't look like war. There's no uniforms. It's hard to even know you're in a war. But the unrestricted warfare control of the American economy, and now taking literally the beachhead of California, is how I see that. Do you agree with that, Mike, or am I off?
I absolutely, they were like doing their best, try to maintain their dictatorship, maintain their power. They also, they feel like America, the democracy is the threat, right? So they would like in terms of like stealing intellectual property, a lot of area. But I also want to point out, as President Trump mentioned, our biggest enemy is from within. Actually, what is the radical left? What they're doing, like DEI, they launch a racial struggle. A critical race theory label innocent American as oppressors versus oppressed. Right, they're doing a lot of things, damaging our open board, damaging our economy, many other things. I see a very similarity to what happened during Chinese Cultural Revolution. So radical left use the same kind of playbook, like Maoist during Chinese Cultural Revolution to destroy America.
Yeah, so that's a key point you guys are making, is the Cultural Revolution that destroyed China's rich and traditional culture is now being used against the United States the same way. You see all the statues coming down and everything, so nobody knows history. So is that what you're saying there, Frank?
Yes, exactly. So the similarities between the what's happening in the United States and the culture war happened in China is very significant. So it starts with ideologies that's centering on oppressing or oppressor. In China, it was by class, and here in the United States, it's by skin color, by weight, by gender identity. So that's a totally made up story, and they pushed us through the educational system, and they made the younger generation really believe in it, and they started to think, oh, the ruling system are against them, and they try to start a revolution. And that's how we see all the statues taking down, and they respected, a false hero like George Floyd, and the students still feel so good about it. And from our point of view, it's so similar to the cultural war.
So Mike, I want to come back to unrestricted warfare, if you agree with me, and if you're familiar with the unrestricted warfare doctrine from the two Chinese U.S. or Chinese Air Force colonels that was then executed through the 1,000 Talents programs. Because as an intelligence officer, I'm very familiar with human intelligence. The 1,000 Talents program was to flood America with Chinese citizens, Chinese students, Chinese scientists. I do competitive intelligence in the biotech field. I see that all the time. And their relatives back in China are held hostage. That is, if you do not do what we want, something will happen to your relatives. And I've actually seen a lot of corporate espionage via Chinese Americans because of the 1,000 Talents program. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Are you familiar with what I'm talking about?
Yes, absolutely. What happened is not only focused on Chinese American scientists. Also, they're like white Caucasian scientists were attracted, right? They use salaries, R&D fundings, high salaries to attract, all top scientists to share, the technologies and science technology with them. And I want to say this also, again, we also need to blame our former president. They do not pay attention to, do not really put the defense against this kind of aggression. So that is a great example, how our former presidents, former politicians failed us, failed to protect Americans' critical technologies.
Yeah, and we are happy that President Trump right now is taking all the fights against the Chinese Communist Party.
So yeah, so I if you guys agree with me about the 20-year unrestricted warfare that has been waged via the 1,000 Talents program, I have credited President Trump with being the first and only commander-in-chief to do anything about that. And that really, from my view, is the tariff wars. The tariff wars were really all about China. Everybody else was just window dressing, but it was the first counter to the unrestricted warfare. And I just wonder if you guys agree with me or not. Mike?
Actually, I have a slightly different view. If you look at like Japan, look at South Korea, right? We're sending troops to there, but they still, before the trade agreement, they really import American goods, right? So, also same thing with Europe, right? Europe, we basically have the troops over there to defend them, but they pay very little to the NATO. They also, like in pharmaceutical, many other areas, they are paying a fraction of our cost for medicines, right? So, President Trump is right. Because of the failure of former presidents, almost the whole world, not to say the whole world, so many other countries have been taking advantage of them, taking advantage of America. So I'm very glad, President Trump have America first, principle. Actually, China absolutely among them. China was number one, absolutely. Huge trade surplus, stealing the intellectual properties, and also, also many non-tariff barriers like forced technology transfer, things like this. Yeah, yes, I think I take a slightly different view, but echo pretty much what you said.
No, and guys, that's totally, you can disagree with me. You're the experts. That's why I'm asking you, so don't feel that you got to agree with me or anything. And I want to hear what you got to say, and I want to learn from you guys. I'm just giving you, my view from as a military intelligence officer. But I also want to ask you about the, Frank, do you remember Lieber at Harvard going to Wuhan to collect his $5,000 payments, and he was actually being run by a Chinese female lieutenant of military intelligence, and she was charged with espionage, but he was just charged with not paying taxes on money. But of course, Wuhan was the center of the controversy for the biological weapons, which, by the way, I don't think originated in China. I think they originated in BARDA and DARPA and then were planted there. But is that out of your lane too much, or can you comment on that?
Yeah, I believe that Fauci actually funded the research.
Yep, you're right.
The Chinese, the Wuhan Institution of what is that? Whatever. That institute didn't manage the virus well, and so that was a leakage, and then it went all over to the world, and that's a fact. And what's appalling is, the indoctrination happens here in the United States, that the Biden administration and Fauci just made a lot of scientists to tell us that no, it's not a lab leak, it's actually a naturally developed. And many of the leftist voters actually believed in it. I still remember back in 2020, 2021, and I met one old lady. And when I talked with her about, I'm pretty sure it's a lab leak because I knew it. And she was like, "Are you a conspiracy theorist?" I must, no. So that part is appalling. And it's of course, it's a warfare from the Chinese Communist Party because they didn't allow us to get into it, to find any evidences to prove it wrong or correct. But also the media system, the scientist system here in the United States, we have a big problem here. And if our supposedly trustworthy institutions cave to money or political power and just don't give us the accurate information, we are in big trouble.
Well, I think they have. I think the government is demociding the American population through biological warfare. I don't think it's a Wuhan lab leak. I think it is a DARPA BARDA operation. I've had lots of doctors on, and I work in this competitive intelligence, biological space, genetic information space quite a bit as well. But Mike, what about the CCP police stations that were popping up everywhere? Again, I interpreted those as really espionage centers. Overseas, you often recruit chiefs of police, or when I was a DEA special agent, I know the CIA liked to get our credentials overseas because we were able to carry guns in a lot of foreign countries that we worked with. We had we had gun permits from the country we were working in, where we were doing counter drug operations. So the CIA liked to get DEA credentials. So I look at the CCP police stations that have popped up around really as espionage centers as well. What do you think about that?
I believe they have probably dual function. One is really try to steal as spying as much as possible. That's one. But another is they really be very watchful any political dissidents, including the people living outside of China, right? So they want to somehow to suppress their opinion, right? Their viewpoint. So I guess like they may serve the dual function, but I'm very glad America, many Western countries already, become alert already, reject this kind of approach. So I would say aggression. So like so yeah.
What about the Confucius institutions that are popping up everywhere, Frank, in America? What do you think about those?
Those institutions were recognized by the intelligence officers, and I believe right now for those institutions, they have been changed by the name, but they're still here in our college. So here in my town in San Diego, I believe San Diego State University, they still have a department basically doing the same thing as before, and it's part of the cultural war. We have similar institutions funded by Chinese Communist Party, and we have similar institutions funded by Muslim countries to promote Islam ideologies, and we have some other organizations from Hindu to promoting the Hindu ideologies. So I believe it's part of a bigger cultural war, and that was embraced by the diversity, equity, and inclusion community to help promote any other culture than our own Judeo-Christian culture, and they promote them, and in the meantime demote our Christian value, and that's dangerous. So right now, many of our next generations, they kind of lost. They don't know what is true, what should actually be respected, and they thought right now is all cultures are equal. No, it's not true.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. I'm so glad you brought that up, is Judeo-Christian values. Oh, and by the way, I just got my Rumble feed up so I can see your guys' comments now. Ideological infiltration, great term. So correct. So if you have questions for my guests, you can put it in there because I'm following the feed now.
Can I add one comment?
Sure, of course.
Actually, the Confucius Institute, they do not really teach Confucius stuff. Okay, Confucius was a great sage in our history. Bring many humanities. He advocated to rule, to govern the people using the humanity, treat people first, right? Many great philosophy, But unfortunately, Confucius Institute do not really teach Confucius. They are really a propaganda machine to really, serving the purpose of the Chinese government.
No, that's a real good point, because Confucius said that you should be principled in your behavior to officials as well. But I do want to get what Frank was mentioning about Christianity, and that really gets to the heart, I think, of the Constitution, because the founders were all Christian. There was a Mosaic base to that. I think there's an indigenous base to that too. But I see in China that there is a new war on Christians, where traditionally there's been a precarious relationship between the Chinese Communist state and Protestant and Catholic congregations, but lately they've really gone after, in particular, the Zion Church, and they're trying. They require Catholic bishops in China to be approved by the government, and the last pope, I think, went along with that. But they are really cracking down, removing crosses, and that's, of course, because I think Christianity is really the true and ultimate freedom. And again, I think that's something that is showing that the Chinese culture, Chinese communism culture, is flailing and failing. But I wanted to hear from both of you on the importance of faith, because it sounds like you're both Christian, and also the state in China, the crackdown on Christians in China.
Yeah, so the persecution to Christians, true Christians in China is getting more and more severe. As you mentioned, Zion Church, basically all the pastors in China in different branches of that church have already been arrested. And they are prepared for it. I believe for true Christians, since they have faith, they know that they serve God instead of serve the people. So they're prepared for it, and they know that this is this is a small road, and not many people can cross it. And I believe that's the motivation or calling to fight against tyranny. It doesn't matter it's in China or in the United States of America, because here I believe our we Christians are facing the same or similar kind of persecution right now. Even though it's not tearing down our church, but during the pandemic, they closed our church while they still allow the grocery store to open. And in their education, they taught about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and basically blaming Christians on every single issue. So and I taught elementary school kids in my church, and they told me, "Hey, Frank, if I admitted in my school that I'm a Christian, the other students will laugh at me." So that's the situation we're facing. But I believe Christians are supposed to, have God's calling and stand up against any tyranny. Like in California, they have a lot of laws recently passed that's totally against the Christian values. And I see a lot of Christians, they are fighting against them. And that's the only hope, that God will bless us.
Well, I think that that's how Rome was co-opted by the martyrs, the blood of the martyrs, and I think that's something that's going to happen in China as well. And I think that Trump may have a legacy plan to overthrow communism in China the way Reagan overthrew communism in Russia. And I think that may be a lot of why he's doing what he is doing. Mike, any thoughts on? Well, first, any thoughts on that, and then secondly, your perspective if you're Christian as well.
Yeah, I think I want to say, number one, President Trump is really trying to make America great again. Why? Because what he got from Joe Biden is really a very terrible situation. We have almost 39 trillion national debt. We have tens of millions of illegal immigrants. We have DEI, we have radical LGBT, we have radical environmental policies, right? So actually America is on decline. So President Trump taking the decisive, decisions to reverse these trends, But also, in the meantime, internationally, America is faced a rising China and a very strong competitor, right? So how to win this competition? President Trump is really strengthen our trade, our economy, our technology to be able to really compete, right? So, that is what I see President Trump is doing. One very important point I want to make, okay? Actually, this kind of ideology control actually started by Joseph Stalin in Russia, right? It is coming from communists, right? In Chinese history, in the past, the emperor only cared about his, whether or not his dynasty can survive, but they really interfere people's ideology, people's religion. But it is really communism really hurt, that ruined the Chinese traditional culture. Also, also have this kind of, this kind of control on ideology.
So, Frank, do you agree with my numbers of 75 million communist China's deaths, or is it that low, high? I put the Russia's communist revolution about 25, 30 million, but China about 75 million. Is that about right?
You mean 75 million deaths in China?
Yeah. Yes, from Chinese communism.
About the number level, but the exact data, it's a black box. Everything is a black box in Soviet Union or in China. I could only say that it's close, but I don't know it's higher or lower. So and it's very difficult to talk about this topic because so many people died, and that's what could happen in any country that would adopt communism, and because that will lead to dictatorship, tyranny for sure. I talked with a communist here in Ramona, and when I asked him which communist country do you think is successful, because he is a communist, and he said what he told me is no, they are not a true communist country, and our communism is a good communism. I was like,
theoretical communism, yeah. Communism sounds great in theory.
Yeah, and I told him, as long as you go through the communism, that means the government will control everything, and who will be the government? Human beings, and all human beings are sinners. And once they have this,
that's right. There you go. That's right. That's exactly.
Once they have the absolute power, and they will be corrupted, and they will become dictators, and they won't allow their powers to fade away. So that's how the communism fails in every single country. But unfortunately, from the New York election, we can see now so many younger generations, they fell into the idea of communism. And I believe that's from the education, and that's from from the radical leftist ideology, which is very concerning.
It is, because there's so much indoctrination in the schools. But I don't know if you guys, I like sci-fi, and so I read The Three-Body Problem, and I also watched the movie Arrival, and then I also watched the Netflix series. And I don't know if you saw the Netflix series, but I was surprised to see that it showed the evils of communism really well. There was a professor that was brought up on stage and beaten to death, and I don't know if you guys saw that or something. But I was like, wow, and that's Netflix. I thought that was really amazing. I don't know if you guys saw that. Did you, Mike? Or
yes, I saw that. Actually, my father during Cultural Revolution, he was tortured and he suffered political persecution. He lost freedom for 5 years, and then so also the political persecution extended to my grandparents. their crime was they used to be landlords. So they were deprived the opportunity to continue living in Kunming, the capital city of Yunnan province. They were forced to relocate to a remote village, mountain village. There's no tap water, no electricity, no nearby clinic. A few months later, my grandma suffered a heart attack and passed away very soon, right? So I knew how bad it was, and I knew during the Cultural Revolution, basically many people suffered torture, and many even been killed. So that kind of communist atrocity. I echo what Frank Xi will mention. About the Mandani, recently elected in New York, right? What really I learned this in horror. What really shocked me is people under age 44. 70% of New York under age 44 voted for Mamdani. Why? Because they did not know how bad the communism is, and they didn't know anything about atrocity. Most of them did not live through the Cold War, right? Another data I want to tell your audience is 53% of college graduates, voted for Mandani. That means all colleges have a lot of propaganda, indoctrination of pro-communism, pro-socialism, that kind of stuff. So I want to really tell your audience, we need to fight back. We really need to have the civic education in K-12. I live in Orlando, Florida. All Florida already have civic education, which teaches the communist atrocity. So that kind of things is what our country needs. We need to also, fight back against the communist indoctrination in colleges.
No, I agree too. But again, to go back to the three body problem, I don't know if Frank, you saw it too, but I mean, what Mike was talking about with his grandparents went through, they showed so much of that. They showed, these professors and accomplished intellectuals pulling logs and, just they really spent a lot of time. So I actually thought that was really good because Netflix is not known for its, they're always trying to slip in a tranny and a homosexual in every show. Yeah. So I actually saw that as making progress. What do you think?
You mean the Netflix?
Well, yeah, and in general, that there's a pushback. If you heard earlier in the show how Gen Z is becoming the tool belt generation, they're forswearing college to go into apprenticeships in trade, where things really have to work. Like if it has to work, then they know communism does not work.
Yeah. So for that part, I believe for there is a bigger hope for those kids who have parents born and raised here in America, because their parents actually know what's happening. They can compare by themselves, and they will actually might give the best advice to their kids. But for many immigrants, I would say it might be a little bit harder because for many of us, like me, we're first generation immigrants here. Many of us, many of our peers probably are not fluent in English. And so they are not able to catch the trend and don't know what's happening to their kids. And all they know is, okay, I have to work harder and so that I can send my kids to the college. But in the meantime, the college is already not the college they think about it should be. It's not going to provide the educational value to their kids, and actually it becomes an indoctrination. They have all sorts of social studies, African studies, Asian studies, psychologies, basically no use. But they really, many of them, they really don't have any idea. So their kids will suffer more indoctrination, unfortunately. So I think it's important for us, because we know their experience and we know what their kids are experiencing. So that's important for us who understand the trend to stand up and talk more, be more vocal to alert them. So I believe that's also what the value is about the Chinese Americans for the Constitution.
Talking about the middle class, Mike, don't you see? So I see the failing problem with, again, I want to go back to, I think Trump might indeed collapse Chinese communism. Now, my friend Mike Adams thinks, and of course, China is an ancient country. China is not going to go away, just like Russia is not going to go away. Persia is not going to go away. The United States is a very young country, but communism will fail because it's a false premise. It will fall. It will fall in China just like it fell in the Soviet Union. Because, like Frank said, it's not based upon true human nature or fallen nature. So you never get past the dictator of the proletariat. But isn't that a problem right now in China, where people work so hard for so long, and now they're trying to achieve a middle class, and the government won't let them achieve a middle class, because you start to achieve middle class, and you start to get into democracy, and that's why we see the walkouts of the factories, we see the bank runs, the real estate collapse. Or do you agree with me, or am I?
Yes. What happened, I want to tell you, is during the Cultural Revolution, Chinese dictator Chairman Mao imposed very rigid communist rules, right? They eliminate all the private enterprise, eliminate private ownership, and eliminate free market competition. And so China's economy collapsed and no more innovation. What happened in 1978, another Chinese leader called Deng Xiaoping, he adopted the open and reform policy, and then he introduced some capitalist elements into China. Gave Chinese people certain degree of political, economic freedom. So China was able to grow its economy. And also China actually developed, some abilities to have innovation, right? But what is happening is the current leadership, they want to take control, and also Deng Xiaoping he did not really push for political reform. So currently China's system is more like nationalized capitalist society.
Yes, nationalized capitalism.
Yeah. So they are politically, the government control, also economically largely influenced by the government, but this still allow individuals, right? So what's happening is the government is take away many people's economic freedom again. So that's the reason, Chinese economy, its middle class is struggling. I read one news basically says, tens of thousands of college graduates are not working in the any good professional field. They're working as a deliveryman, like a fast food delivery. Think about that. So that is the kind of backwards. So because the economy is not doing well, and because the government restriction, too much restriction during the COVID-19, also too much government control. That's what's happening now.
So one of the listeners says, Frank gets it. The foundations of greater society is Christ and the nuclear family. And here's a question for you, Frank. How do the guests suggest reaching out to immigrants? Well, I think you're doing that through your organizations, right?
Yeah, yes, we're doing that. So first of all, I believe we need to know what the truth is, right? No matter how many fake ideologies are out there, we got to know what the absolute truth is. And then after we are equipped with the absolute truth, we definitely need to reach out to our peers. I would say, for example, for me, it will be harder for me to speak with Hispanic immigrants because no matter how hard I work, I probably cannot feel,
No
feel the
habla
same.
español.
I cannot understand their language, right? But my responsibility is to, speak Chinese and advocate the absolute truth to my community, to the Chinese community. But it's different than the Democrats. I mean, the Democrats. They think one community should, should think the same. We're not. We just tell them what the truth is, what the fact is. Think for yourself. But our job is to let you know what's happening and don't just blindly follow one trend in this world.
Yeah, Jeffrey, I want to say you raise a very good point. Why? Because in Asian, communities, over 70% of Asian adults were born in another country. And many of them feel more comfortable with their native language, right? So that's the reason actually in 2024, I team up with another Vietnamese American, formed called Asians Making America Great Again, campaigned for President Trump because we knew, number one, we have language advantage. We can reach out to our fellow Asian Americans. That's number one from linguistic standpoint. Number two, we know what are their key key issues. For example, Chinese Americans, Indian Americans care about equal education rights, right? So when we emphasize to them, it is the Democrats who support the racial discrimination against Asians, right? That motivated many Chinese American, Indian American, Asian Americans to vote for President Trump, right? So, I think you touch a very good point, and I want to emphasize, again, here is really having, a minority outreach will be very crucial in the upcoming middle-term election.
Well, thank you so much for you guys coming on. I've learned so much, Shusha. And where can people follow you guys? What's your website again?
It's caforconstitution.org.
caforconstitution.org. Excellent. And I don't know if you know, but since his arrest on October 10th, Pastor Ezra Mingidi Jin managed to send a single note through his attorney, a message now circulating among Chinese Christians and Christians worldwide. It contained only 2 words written in capital letters: fear not. And I think you guys both embody that as well. So thank you so much for coming today on the Prather Point.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
Okay, it's a great pleasure talking with you.
God bless. Okay. So remember, the enemy is as ancient as the war. Respect, never underestimate the enemy. The first rule of war is to know when you are in one. Then know the battlefield. The terrain is always human. Discern via action, not words, friend or foe. Sheep from wolves. Victory or defeat depends upon commitment. Faith defeats fakery. Infiltration is not immigration. Idealism is not realism. Religion is not God. Prayer talk is not kinetic. Yeshua flipped and whipped tables and traitors. If not you, who? Neighbor up, study up, train up, show up, link up with Team America, and take it back.